Welcome to Anmore's presentations for Las Vegas market and Atlanta market this winter for our programming, which will kick off our winter 2024 season of markets. I'm Kim Porter, the Senior Programming Manager for Anmore, and presenting with us today is Austin W. Bunch of Bunch's Companies. He's going to be talking about making sales on purpose, a glimpse into part of what he'll be presenting at both Atlanta market and Las Vegas market. We do encourage you to register for Las Vegas market, which runs January 28th through February 1st, and Atlanta market, which runs January 16th through the 22nd. Those links I'll put into the chat, and you can also find them on our website. We also have our new app, our Market app, which is now available for Apple and Android devices. Austin Bunch is the most in-demand sales marketing training consultant on the gift and home accessories industry, and companies large and small have retained him to teach their in-house sales forces to be more effective and to sell. Recently, he was honored as a member of the latest Who's Who in America, and he is the author of a new book, Bunch Book of Selling. And that book will be available both at Atlanta Market and Las Vegas Market with his presentations there. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Austin.
Okay, thank you, Kimberly. And I want to thank the Mark for having me and sponsoring this today. I am both honored and humbled to be speaking to my peers today. I'm also fortunate that over my many years of a career, I've had the good fortune of working with a lot of smart people, a lot smarter than I am. Some accumulation of trial and error and a whole lot of people that I've worked with. I've also held positions in this industry, from the salesman, myself, to sales manager, to CEOs of companies, to president, to now consulting and working in training and marketing. And if you would, Kim, if you drop down the next slide, we'll kind of get started, all right? Today's topic is making sales on purpose. And you may see there, and people who've worked with me can see kind of my signature called Purpose, Process, and Payoff. And quite honestly, every meeting, our phone call, our sales presentation begins with a purpose, it has a process, and it has a payoff. So my purpose today in visiting with everyone is to share with you a few of the things I've learned, a few of the things you already know as kind of a reminder. My process will be following a series of slides that I've put together to kind of keep me on task and so that you can also follow along. And my desired payoff is to bring better understanding to each player in this industry. And if Kim will drop down the next slide, I'll share that with you. It's around creating alignment between three important entities in the industry. One is the vendor, two is the salesperson, three is the the retailer. And all three of us, vendor, salesperson, and retailer, are after one person, and that is the consumer. And the reason I call this creating alignment is in the past, I've seen a little bit of disconnect between all three entities. They almost want to stand alone, and yet working together is how we successfully reach the consumer. If you would, Kendry, the next one. So we all think we understand each other and each other's roles. So I thought I would share with you understanding the roles and responsibility of all three and remind you of a couple of things. Let's take the vendor as an example first. What does he do and what does he provide? A good vendor is a sourcer of product. They create product and then they source it all over the country. It takes them a year and a half to go in and find and get the product. Then they bring it in, they warehouse it, and then ship it. And then they provide showrooms and support and salespeople. And when I talk about showrooms, some of these vendors, wholesalers, have 2, 3, or 4 showrooms. And I was down in Atlanta Market yesterday where I live and noticed that these people are completely redoing their showrooms, which they do once or twice a year. So your vendor is somebody that has a lot invested in people, time, money, and product. And all this product in their warehouses, they get ready to go to market, is already paid for. So they've got a bank that they hope to ship out and make sure everyone gets their product. So the next person in this scenario is our salesperson. And you notice I call him the key facilitator. And most people realize a facilitator, who's the action person between two parties, are in a presentation. He's the guy that keeps it together and makes sure that the vendor gets the information he needs, that the retailer gets the information he needs. He aligns the two. So his responsibility, or their responsibility, is to be very knowledgeable and continue to learn more about their vendor, about their competition, about the industry in general. And then they act as a conduit between the two parties, vendor and retailer. So what does the retailer do? Retailer, number one, they supply an outlet for the consumer to come in and shop, a store. Kind of like the vendor has a warehouse, the retailer has a store. And they should know their customers. They should understand and see the taste, price points, and marketing timing that they need, and share this back with the salesman, who aligns it again with the vendor. So you see how the roles and responsibilities are very succinct, very defined, and I call it using your resources. All of us are resources, and if we try to do this by ourselves, it's very hard. So the retailer understands he has challenges. He needs to turn to his salespeople and his vendor for help. If you would, Kimberly, give us the next one. Excuse me. Okay. I like to say that everyone has, in this industry, in any industry, has what we call fears and suicides. And I want to kind of explain those two. And at this point, I'm going to kind of drop the vendor, because I consider the vendor and the retailer very similar in their roles. Just one's larger than the other, but they still have the same balancing act to do. So from this point on, I'm going to talk about the salesman's responsibility and the retailer. So let's talk about fears a moment. And you see the first one up there, and every salesman shakes his head, I see, is rejection. It's a normal concern that you have, and you just have to take time to get over it. As you accumulate knowledge and all, you begin to get over your fears of rejection. Next thing that a lot of salesmen, quite honestly, are not as good as they should be, is that of asking questions. I call this discovery. And so you need to learn how to ask questions of your customer and not assume anything, which we'll talk about in a minute. But if you're a good question asker and a good listener, then you will accumulate an awful lot of knowledge. Rather than doing all the talking, try to do a lot of the listening. And then third, I put up another misunderstood things a lot of salesmen people misunderstand is fear of being assertive. And when I say assertive, a lot of people look at me, oh, you're either passive, assertive, or pushy. Now, we don't want to be pushy, and passive people don't make very many sales. So I defined the word assertive, and it actually comes up in the dictionary of having confidence and knowledge of what you're doing. And so if you're confident and knowledgeable, you're going to have a tendency to be assert that and help people think. So do not be afraid to be assertive. Get your knowledge and gain all that together. So those are just some of the things that salespeople have to deal with in the industry and keep getting better at. So now retailers. Retailers have a lot of fears also, just like everyone else. And one of their fears is fear of being sold. And when I think about that, I think of the old idea of years ago that always people defined a salesman as somebody that was going to do something to me rather than somebody that was going to do something for me. And so in this industry and working and aligning, your salesman's job is to bring you solutions, ideas, and recommendations, not to do something to you, but to partner with you and help you accomplish your objectives. So then the next thing a lot of buyers have is, of course, fear of buying the wrong products. It always kind of reminds me of the story that when you started your business, you started because someone probably told you to be a good retailer, or you had a passion for art or a passion for home accessories, and you decided to start your store. and you decided all the things you wanted to buy because you liked them. And then whoops, a lot of your customers didn't align. So if you survive the first 1 or 2 years, then you kind of learn what to buy. And sometimes you still have to take chances on products because if they're brand new, they have no history. You have to take a chance on it, just like the vendor does. And then of course, sometimes people are afraid of buying at the wrong price or at the wrong time. And a lot of times, that's a experience teaches you that sometimes you have to buy far enough ahead to get your product. Sometimes you buy a product and you think, oh, it's too cheap or too expensive, but you let the counter do your testing for you. If it is, you mark it down and realize, don't buy that product at that price point again. So those are just some area views of some of the things we all kind of share. Then one of my favorite sayings that I got from my trainer years ago, Glenna Ballard, was assume-asides. And people who worked with me know that that's a statement I like, because committing a suicide is assuming that you know something before you've researched it, before you actually have facts about it. You just assume this is true or this is not true. So some of the salespeople have assume-asides. And some of them the suicide is they fear the retailer has no needs. And every time I look at that, I think about one of my students that I'm in touch with today that I've worked with 10 or 12 years ago. And one day she calls and says that she was trying to get her sales up to par and was calling all of her customers. And she came across a customer that she had sold about 6 weeks ago about 50 pieces of one item. And so when she went to look at this, she decided maybe I shouldn't call that customer, that they don't need anything. And her name is Deanie. And Deanie said, Austin, your voice was in the back of my head that said, don't assume anything. So she called the customer, and behold, the customer not only had sold all the product, they need double the amount for the next ending. So she ended up making it by not assuming that they didn't need anything. That's another big fallacy a lot of people do. Assume no besides making the call. So that always tickles me that we do that. Assuming that the retailer knows your company. A lot of times we go to market or we call on a customer and we make the assumption she knows everything about us. And the customer usually knows about a retailer, a wholesaler, about what they bought from you. So they may have bought ABC, and you're really about 100 other things. And if you don't constantly, as a salesman, re-enlighten them of who and what you are, and realize your company changes twice a year. January, you bring out new market. In the spring, you bring out new products. So actually, 200 or 300 products come in and come out. So assuming they know who you are and what you are constantly is an assume-aside again. And then the other thing is assuming the retailer won't work with you. That comes again from a lot of misnomers, but I want to also clear up something here. A lot of salespeople make the assumption that they're dealing with buyers. Now, when you're at market, you are dealing with a retailer who is a buyer, because that's what she does. She goes to market, drops all of her problems, all of her issues with the store, and almost on vacation goes to the market and concentrates on product. And for 2, 3, 4, 5 days, she is a bona fide buyer. Ladies and gentlemen, when she comes back to the store, she puts on a hat that has about 9 bills on it. And one of them is opening the store. Another one is making sales in the store. Another one is opening boxes and inventory and price tagging. Another one is hiring and overseeing people. So all of a sudden, she becomes consumed. And so deciding she doesn't want to work with you is a misnomer. You have to be able to bring her value, because every phone call and every time you walk in the store, even with an appointment, ladies and gentlemen, it is an interruption. Every phone call, everything is. So take away the fear they don't want to work with you. You just have to be good at getting their attention and bringing value to them. And as you create that constantly, you'll be very good at it. Now, that also brings up another little thing I'll share at this time. A lot of people want to call a retailer, and here's how the phone call goes. Hi, Mary. This is Austin. How you doing? last time I talked to you, your dog was sick. How's it doing? Well, that customer is doing something, and that 4 or 5 seconds irritates the heck out of her. And anyone that's had phone calls, any retailer out there that's got a phone call from people who have been trained by me, here's what they hear. Hello, Mary. This is Austin with Bunch Companies. Mary, I have 2 purposes for calling today. Number one, I want to learn what you sold, how your weekend is going, how sales are tracking. And number two, I have some things to share with you that we're doing very well with, and some other stores are, that you have yet to purchase. So, Mary, how was last week? That takes care of your purpose, the process, and that's your agenda. And so when retailers hear that, they're more apt to listen to you. But if otherwise you are interruption, and if you stay on the visiting side of a call rather than the business side, you're going to lose them a lot of times in the first 4 or 5, actually in the first 15 or 20 seconds. So that's on the consumer side. On the salesperson side. Now let's go to the retailer. Retailers have assumptions also. And one of the assumptions is they can't sell either lower price goods or they can't sell high end goods. And some people get trapped into that. And yet, you need to have a store that's well merchandised, which a lot of y'all do a lot of good job of merchandising, but you must have something in that store for all levels of retail, or you are going to be very narrow. The customer that comes in, let's take the high-end customer. Her shopping habits and abilities are very different than a moderate customer or a price entry customer. Number one, she's not price resistant. Number two, she sees something she likes, she buys it. So if you don't have that customer, then you're going to have times that you're not going to turn your goods as fast, or you're not going to sell high-end goods that you have a better markup on. And so you come down, even a lot of the high-end stores I work with over the years, many people have come to my showrooms, and I would notice that, they don't look like our customer, they don't act like it. I'll ask, may I ask, why are you shopping our products today? And they'll say, well, I'm a very high-end store. And one lady showed me she was in the antique business and she sold $4,000, $5,000, $8,000 worth of items. And she said, I need some starter price points. I need some things at $25, $50, $80 to get my customers started buying. And I thought that was a very interesting thing. So you see, you need both ends, and then you find your sweet spot. And that sweet spot sometimes changes over the year because holiday changes what the customer will buy. Mother's Day is a good example. Mother's Day is the one time of the year that everybody is buying for one person, and they spend more money on one person than they do at Christmas or other type of things. So that's why you should expand and not be afraid to buy both ends of the spectrum. Another suicide is can't trust salespeople. Well, again, that comes back to the old adage that people feel that a salesperson is going to do something to them rather than something for them. If you have a new salesperson or a salesperson that doesn't quite approach you the right way, then you take the initiative of simply saying, asking them good questions. What are you doing? What are you here? What do you represent? Here's what I need. Here's what I work with. Here's my price points. And so take the initiative to kind of get him straightened out so you can build trust with the salesperson. Your salespeople that have a lot of experience and have been with you for years, they kind of know that. So, but once in a while, you even have to redirect them to help you buy the right things. Last thing is says can't sell products in their area. Doing this many years, I hear that a lot of times. Years ago, I can't sell this product in my area. I can't sell this. We don't have a customer for it. And yet, when you stop and think today, now that could be true 30 years ago. But with the advent of things like television, Facebook, all the media out there, e-commerce, there's no such thing as an area of the country that won't sell. The only time it won't sell in your store is you don't have it. And yet, when you think too, even in small towns, your kids grow up, move away, come home. They go out and shop in the area, and they say, gosh, these stores don't have this, mom, and don't have that. And so you've got to once in a while, be creative, and once in a while expand. Be the store in town that has a lot of things for a lot of people. And again, sorry to say, or good to say, you have to constantly be relooking that and relooking at it. In the industry, there's nothing really constant. And While I'm on this page, I want to make one other statement. I forgot to make earlier. This industry, when you think about what is the industry we're in a boutique industry. And the word boutique means small and unique. For example, this is an industry where products are created, designed, and brought to market. And then when they go to, and they flourish until the national chains get them, and then they die. And that's why this market is called boutique. We keep turning and bringing new products in and bringing new products in. So that's what we're in. And what's interesting about our industry, there's no $1 billion, $200 billion players. It's made up of thousands and thousands of independent retailers, just like yourselves, that do anything anywhere from $250 a year to several million, with a sweet point around $700,000 to $800,000. So, and the same thing with your vendors. Your vendors are small vendors. There's thousands of them. In fact, if you picked up the Atlanta roastery and just counted the number of independent vendors who show there, both in their own showroom or in a rep showroom, there's around 6,000. And then and that's smallest. Then you go to other, there's a lot of small vendors between 1, 3 million, 10, 15 million, 50, 80 million. There's very few that gets into the 100, $200 million range. So small and unique. It's one reason I like the industry. When I was president of House Parts, Rachel gave me a title. She said, "You are the king of the little stores," because I concentrated on building a broad base and working with the smaller stores and not committing my stock and inventory to large stores who when they bought from me, would mess up my inventory. I couldn't work with the smaller stores. And we built a good business on the independent retailer. If you would go to the next thing for me, Kimberly. Okay. It says two of the most powerful words in selling. May I? And this is something that two things that I like to have a vendor or organization do. First, understand how to use purpose, process, and payoff. If everything they do has a purpose, everything has a process, and everything has a desired payoff, then everybody kind of gets on the same page. And then when we get to communications, rather than telling people things, let's use the word may I. And give me just a second because I want to catch up with myself here. Okay. May I is used in communication. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. Let's go to salespeople. Salespeople are sometimes not as good as doing discovery and learning a lot about their customers before they start selling or start showing products. And they can use the word may I, and of course, may I is asking for permission, whereas can I is asking if you can. So when you say may I and the person grants that, 90 times out of 10, they listen to you. So if you say things to a customer like, may I ask a little bit about your store? May I ask a little about your customer? May I ask who are some of your vendors, must-see vendors? May I ask what you looked at our company to do for you? So you see how non-invasive that approach is, rather than say, can I tell you, or tell me about your store, or let me show you this. See how that changes the context of working with somebody. And then if we go down to the retailer uses the same thing. Rather than being standoffish to their vendor, just say to your salesperson, may I ask to share a little bit about your business? Who do y'all share with? What's your product? What's your price points? What do you do? May I ask what your return policy is? May I ask what your open to buy is? You see how that words and that deals give you more of a communication and less of an adversarial working environment. And then the other thing I love about well, even in the stores, if I may finish, a lot of times when you look at a retailer, you may, someone comes in, one of your customers, may I ask what you're looking for? Are you just looking for, and the customer says, well, I'm looking for a gift for a friend. May I ask, is this just a gift, or is it something that you want to show more appreciation for? Saying that sometimes sits in the customer's mind, oh, you know, I really would like to show more appreciation. So she's going to buy a different product or a more expensive product. So May I helps reposition a lot of our thoughts, and I recommend using it. And I'm going to share a story with you, if I may. Anybody that knows me knows I will anyway.
Austin, I want to check to see if you're still there.
I was going to share with you a story of the young lady that was a divorcee and a single mother of an 11-year-old boy. And she was shared with us one day of how Bobby wouldn't do this and Bobby wouldn't do that, and how much problem she had getting him to do things. And so at the end of a session, I said, well, why don't you today, when you go home, use May I with Bobby and see how it works. And she became a cross-eyed look and went home. The next morning, she came back, and here's what she shared with us. She said, you know, just for the heck of it, he came home from school, and about 3:30, I said, Bobby, may I ask you to clean your room before dinner? And she says, he did. And she says, I don't know whether he was shocked or what, but I was amazed about how that works so well rather than always telling. And so if we'll get out of the telling mode and start the asking mode, we will be much better to do that.
When they get a negative and they say,
Oh, my associate reminded me of a situation. Also, where May I is great, and I have one of my managers on that I used to laugh about because he's been selling for many years. And whenever he tried to use scripts and work on a phone environment, he had some challenges until he discovered how May I could help him. He had a customer one time. He said, I understand that you're in the antique business. And the customer said, yep. And he said, I understand that you registered for us a couple of years ago. Yep. That's all the guy said. And so finally, the sales manager said, Bob, may I ask to elaborate a little bit on about what type of business you're in and how you do this? And may I ask that? So it's a great way to have a conversation with what I call non-responsive people. So it's something to constantly do, to use in everything you do with. So may I is something that will serve you well in a lot of things of all your business. If you would, Kimberly, I think we're at number 6. Yeah. Okay, this is called a formula for success. Now, we've talked about all these entities, and one of the formulas is working together. And it says there, open communication. Learn and use open communication. Use good verbiage, good wordage, get to the point, share your concerns, and look for each one to help each other in getting to the consumer. Number 2 is building a business partnership. Now, we've heard this all of our life. What is building a business partnership between vendors and salespeople? It's really building a trust that each will be open with each other so that you can actually communicate and take care of your problems. Stores right now this year retail is beginning to get a little soft. And so rather than being spinning around, ask your salesman, Bob, what are other stores doing during this time? What events, what specials, what's working for them? And he'll tell you, because remember, he works with 100 or so people. He also has a network of salespeople he can call and ask. So around the country, they bring you solutions. So don't not use your resources because altogether, these resources are aiming for the right products, right time, at the right price, and you put them in the right place in your store. Now that formula is a formula for success. I had one lady one time said, that doesn't make sense. Well, I realized she wasn't really talking to me. So I said, oh, well, let's reverse it. What happens if you have the wrong product, the wrong time, the wrong price? She said, oh, I didn't understand what you said. So see, that's where may I repeat or may I reiterate what I just said. So sometimes people don't listen to you, and you've got to have a good enough ear and listen yourself to see if they're responding to you. And so that's what communication is all about in building partnerships. Then we talked briefly about price layering. And I used to, years ago, I used to be in the hosiery business, and I called on national chains all over the country. And at one time, the yarn cost of hosiery went up. And for years and years, you used to buy a men's sock or a lady's knee sock for 99 cents. And bingo, it went up 10 cents and started going up. Well, my retailer started complaining, and I said, well, look, this is not going to stop. So you need to open up price points and just represent them in your store, not 50 items, but 4 or 5 items, so that when the prices do raise, you have a place to put them. You're not creating shock. You're just expanding that price point because now you have to. So price layering is very important. It's very important to have something for your high-end customer, your moderate customer, and your low-end customer. And then at the same time, when you prepare for market, you look at what you've been selling the last 4 or 5 months and see if things have shifted. Hey, I'm selling more high-end products than I realized. I'm selling more of this thing. I'm selling more of that. That's part of your preparation for market. And if you were a national chain store or a department store, here's what you do in preparing for market. You would review each vendor you worked with. You look at profit and loss of each vendor. You look at how they react, how they serviced you. And then also, after a while, you look at, do you have too many vendors or do you not have enough? Now, a lot of people in this industry have the thought that if they have 100, 150 vendors, they'll always have different products in different areas. Well, that's a lot to manage. Sometimes it's best to find 40 or 50 core vendors that you know how they ship, you know their pricing, you know them, they know you, and then you build around that unusual products and small vendors that you could also work with. But sometimes having 100 or 200 vendors is a lot to juggle with them, okay? So we're going to jump from price layering to markup and margins. Now, ladies and gentlemen, everybody out there knows that prices for everything have increased. Price of rent has gone up. Your price of utilities have gone up. Your price of employees have gone up. Your price of products have gone up. So consequently, when you're pricing your goods, one thing you have to make sure of that you're including all cost. And if you were a vendor, it's called landed cost. They have a cost of what they bought it in China. By the time they put it on a unit and ship it to California, they've got a freight cost, and then they ship it from California to them. They've got to incorporate all that cost before they sell the product, and so do you. And then once you have the actual landed cost, if you paid $10 for it and you paid freight costs, and that was 20%, you better add that to it if you want to get it. And then the old markup point of 1.2 does not work in today's marketplace anymore. Most of our astute retailers are doing 2.5, and some are doing 0.3 points up. And what they've learned is that if you take, you are, I like to say, people talk about branding. But ladies and gentlemen, retailers, you are your brand, you and your store. And what I mean by that is, I'll go back to the customer years ago I used to sell socks to. He would worry about price. And until he understood that his name stood for something. They walked into his shoe store, they were expecting a certain price and certain quality. When they walk into your store, it's the same thing. It's like walking into a Neiman Marcus. We don't go into Neiman Marcus and look for Walmart goods. We don't go in Walmart and look for Neiman Marcus goods. So you have to kind of decide what you want to be and expand there. And then going back to margins, when you have good margins, it covers, you have money to buy, and it covers your mistakes. Now, if everything you bought sold at full margins, you'd be okay. But ladies and gentlemen, it does not. Going back to another thing I want to share with you, the difference between a department store and the small independent stores is a department store will not sit on dead goods very long. They have a product on their counter that's not checking, and they've had it 2, 3, 4 weeks, and it's just not moving. They immediately mark it down. so they can bring in more products, and they have a range that they do on it. So that's something I notice a lot of small stores who they want to buy and hold that product until it sells, and that takes up space and it looks bad in your store. So get comfortable marking things down and getting things out of your store. If you would, to the last thing, I think that we're kind of ready to summarize. So I'm going to say thank you. I hope that I've been able to share some ideas, stimulate some thoughts. As I said, my purpose was to bring alignment to you and use your resources. You've got a lot of good people out there. This is a great industry. And quite honestly, you have a lot of honest, forthright people that just like you have worked hard to create their businesses. Let's all work together. Thank you.
Come to the seminar.
Oh, then I'm reminded that we have a seminar in Atlanta. Actually, we'll be doing 1 hour, and I think it's on the. Do you recall, Kimberly?
It is, I believe, on Friday.
That's right. I think it's the 19th of January. That's correct. Thank you. And it's at 2 o'clock. And then yours in Vegas is on Sunday at, is it 2 o'clock also?
2 o'clock, yes.
I'm going to expand more on my book, which is the title of it is How to Sell a Bunch, Not a Little. My grandson named it, so we figured we'd stay with that. And we'll go into a lot more depth about sales, marketing, and those areas. So I invite you to join us there. Thank you. I'm ready for any questions that y'all might have had.
What do you suggest when a buyer or an individual, as a sales rep, is working with them, seems uninterested in engaging in conversation? You want to provide the needed information to them as a sales rep, but the door may seem closed. What do you do?
Okay, there's several avenues to that today. Years ago, you were usually either tied to the telephone or you go in and see them in person. Now you've got email, and now the most important, biggest piece of the things that people do respond to is text. A short text seems to be more receptive. I go back to a young lady I was telling you about earlier who sold the store that she didn't think needed anything. She uses her personal phone, and she's an inside salesperson. And of course, a lot of rep would think she uses her phone. Texting it's a phenomenal thing for her. But at the same time, to answer Jeff's area, if I understand it, he's having a customer that pushes back. He's having a hard time either getting them or they're not interested. So a lot of times that's a good point to have your questions. And you call sometime or you walk in, you may say, Mary, the purpose of my visit today is very simple. It's more of a marketing call to learn a little bit about your store, learn and tell you a little bit about what I do and see what alignments we can do and how I might be of value to you. Do you have a few minutes that you can share that with me? Because we're doing so well with other stores like yours. May I ask for that information? So that's one way to do it. I hope I answered that question.
Says they took over a retail store in September, and her background is in nursing. Compared to years past, sales have been soft, as you had said. They have fun looking around, but it doesn't look great. Old pegboards, scratched tables for displays, etc. She's wondering if you have any book, sites, or resources for ways to lay out and display items. And this could be from a book all the way to a consultation. She's open.
You know, a lot of the books I read on retail are older books. Number one, there again is using your resource of your salespeople. There's some salespeople out there who've been in retail and go into a lot of stores, and they're invaluable of showing you here's what other stores do like. Go on other people's Facebooks. A lot of times they will show you on Facebook what their store looks like. They have they'll do a deal of it. Then another great way is when you go to market. Look at your wholesalers of how well they market things. Now, years ago, years ago, you couldn't take a picture in a showroom. Oh, did you get beat up? Well, now they're more open because designers do that. So go into a showroom and take pictures of presentations and see what it looks like so that you get a good idea. Because if you got old pegboards and what have you, that is it doesn't make a good presentation. And so if you'll study and look at other things, there's a lot available to you, but a lot of it is through market and retailers. through your salespeople, because he calls on all kinds of stores. I'll give my daughter a plug. I have a daughter that is very good at merchandising, who's a salesman, but Lisa had a retail store, and yet she goes in and is very good at helping her merchants find how to better respond to things. And I think that's the easiest way to do it.
Another resource that we have available to kind of go along with that is, as I had put in the chat and mentioned, we do have our At Market app. The ones that I have there in the chat for you to download, you get your QR code to get your badge, but in the app itself has a place for you to take pictures in showrooms and to scan the QR code from each showroom you visit and make notes. It's a whole new system that will be a benefit to you, the buyer and the retailer going to market, to kind of see some of those examples. If you see something that you really like, take a picture, put it in there, and then it's kind of notated as to, hey, I want to know more. And then aftermarket, we provide a wrap up to you. So that's just another complimentary way of using the app that we have.
It's another resource. I may add, if I may, to that lady, the nurse we'll call her. You also will learn in retailing, if you just bought the store, and a lot of retailers know this, and a lot of them forget it. It's called store rotation. And what you do to keep constant looking your store look well is you rotate everything counterclockwise. In America, we shop to the right. So you move everything around. Some people every week or every day. It's just like you're going to market now. A showroom went into in the spring looks entirely different than you did this in spring. As I said, I came down. They've broken their showrooms completely down to the floor, and then they re-put it in there. And a lot of times they put a lot of older merchandise in there, merchandise with new merchandise, and they sell everything. So that's a key thing: rotation. And then again. Take those old boards that you got, paint them. There's a lot of things you can do in that, but you get a lot of ideas from products. What's the next question we have?
The next one is, as an inside seller, how would you re-engage inactive customers?
Inactive customers?
Re-engage?
You re-engage inactive customers, and they said as an inside salesperson?
Correct.
Okay, that is an easy peasy. and a lot of my students are out there will know this. When you call a customer that hasn't bought for a while, here's a script that you use. It's very simple. Hello, this is Austin with Bunch Companies. Mary, I have two purposes of calling you today. One is to apologize for losing contact with you. And two is to bring your attention back to everything that we're doing at Bunch Companies since the 2 or 3 years you purchased from us. Mary, do you have a few moments that I may share that with you? And actually, I have the ability by screen share to give you a 10 or 15-minute overview that actually takes about 12 minutes. May I do that? So you see where the may I and being succinct and to the point and professional, the customer's not used to that. And so when you say the purpose of my call is, you're setting the agenda and they will follow you. And if you disbelieve that, I can give you a list of about 50 stores and 200 reps who use it.
A lot about that in your book.
A lot about that in my book, as my wife reminds me. We talk a lot in the book, Bunch of Selling, about scripting, agenda setting. And when you say the word scripting to a lot of people, the hair on the back of the neck stands up. Quite honestly, ladies and gentlemen, we all script. We have a way of saying things, except each time it's different and disorganized. And we think we've said everything, but if it's not written down in practice, you don't. Go ahead.
And we want to thank you, Austin, for joining us. And for everybody who tuned in, we welcome you to register and come to one of our markets this winter. This is just a preview of what Austin is going to be presenting at market. And you'll also have the opportunity to get a copy of his brand new book, The Bunch Way of Selling. So at this time, I just want to thank you and hope that you have a wonderful week. So thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.